In this episode, my old and ugly nightstands disappear. Mysteriously disappear. And I attempt to build new ones. Waterfall white oak nightstands. Enjoy. I would like the form to be simple but interesting. Drawer on top, open shelf underneath. Rectangular form, but let's diversify it a bit. I will add bevels on the front. A drawer without any hardware. Here we will make a cutout for the hand. I would like the body to be made of one piece, the so-called waterfall, so that the patterns on the boards would continue on each side. But how to do something like this without messing up? Okay, whoever asks doesn't make mistakes.
Tak, halo, słucham.
Cześć Bogdan, tutaj Łukasz.
No cześć.
Masz chwilę?
Kto?
Łukasz z kanału Woodworking. Może
A,
kojarzysz.
cześć, no pewnie, że kojarzę. Oglądam od lat.
Ale to nowy kanał.
Nowy kanał. No cześć kolego, co tam?
To radziłbyś mi przy robocie?
Co potrzeba? Czego nie wiesz?
Nie za bardzo wiem, jak ugryźć szafki waterfall.
No to jest prosta sprawa akurat. Słuchaj, bierzesz... Zapisz sobie może.
Okej.
Bierzesz kawałek drewna.
Aha.
Kawałek drewna bierzesz, dąb polecam na przykład.
Tak.
Dąb, słuchaj.
Dąb.
I normalnie bierzesz sobie jakiś fajny wodospad. Wodospad sobie fajny bierzesz, no i to łączysz, nie?
Serio?
Serio, no drewno, wodospad łączysz i masz połączenie waterfall.
Aha.
Tak.
No okej, cześć.
No, cześć. And how can you not like him? So open to helping amateurs. Okay, I'll improvise with this waterfall. We start with the selection of wood. Let it be oak. I like this look. As a beginner, I choose pre-planed boards. They were lying around for a while, so I still need to straighten them. I start the planer. My model is Triton TPL152. It works very well in a small workshop. First, I make a pass on the wider side. Then, pushing it to the fence, I straighten the perpendicular edge. This is how we get a square. After this step, we can move on to the second wide side. For this, we will use a thicknesser. Although the planer will create an even surface, it will not necessarily be parallel to the opposite side, and that's what we care about. At this point, after leveling a few boards, I found it ineffective. The thickness of my material is about 4 centimeters, and I wanted the final thickness to be about 3 centimeters. I would probably spend a whole week planing. That's why I decided to use the table saw and thin the boards about 7-8 millimeters by making 2 passes, one from the bottom and then rotating the board from the top. Now I can even them out on a thicknesser just in one pass. The last step of leveling the boards is to make a parallel, narrower surface. I do that on the table saw. This way our forward surfaces are smooth, parallel and perpendicular to each other. Ready for gluing. But before gluing, I made domino mortises so that my boards stay in position. My thicknesser has 31 cm max capacity and these countertops are 41 cm wide, so I won't be able to fit them. Have I forgotten something? Okay, contacts find Bourbon Moth.
Hi Jason, this is Lucas from Poland. I'm just preparing a glue up for my nightstands, waterfall nightstands boards, and I just wanted to ask you if I haven't forget anything from my preliminary steps. I just did.
Lucas, Or is it Lucas? I
Okay.
don't even know how to say your name. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from. I don't even know where Poland is, all right? So quit bothering me, stop asking for my advice, and just go do something for yourself for a change, all right? Okay? Just go. Go. Be a man.
Thank you, Jason. You don't know how much of a help it was to me. Thank you once again.
Well, those guys are priceless. What would I do without them? Now the whole thing ends up in clamps. After hardening, I pre-sand the surfaces. Now was the time to make the final depth. The cabinet's depth will be 40 centimeters. I set up the saw and away we go. I had to figure something out with the infeed table. With longer formats it's quite difficult to handle it. Now I'm cutting the bottom part of the cabinet, which will not be from the same piece. The mentioned waterfall will be on the side walls and at the top. Unfortunately, I didn't have boards long enough to make 4 sides. I set the angle on the plant saw and I cut the oak. The same operation on a long element. I measured the pieces with my cheap square from China. Someone known accused me in a comment that if something is cheap, it is definitely of bad quality, and there's no discussion about that. Well, that's actually right. If it were expensive, it would definitely be better. Give me a moment. You can feel the quality right away. Okay, 1 and 2, and I've got everything cut in pieces. Now I'm moving on to the front edge. I would like it not to be square, but to have bevel at 45 degrees, about 8-9 mm from the edge. I set the saw blade using the electronic protractor. I'm making that cut with my heart in my mouth, because with this step I might mess up the project. I'm cutting off all the edges. Now the preparation to assemble the cabinets. Domino will be super helpful here. I make mortises at 45 degrees. The whole thing holds together nicely even without the glue. Before gluing, I will make grooves in the walls to place the board that will be under the drawer. There is no point of using oak here. I will use 15 mm ply and only the edges will be made of oak. I make 5 mm groove only because I don't want to use screws, only glue. I managed to buy a pre-owned Festool OF1400 plant router at the bargain price. I must tell you that for the first time in my life I was not afraid when I held the rotor in my hands. It's true what they say though, when you buy Festool you don't just buy tools, you buy a system. I use the guide from my plunge saw here. I attach it to the board and attach a stopper at the end. Nothing moved, even by the millimeter. I sand the insides to a grit of 150 because it would be difficult after gluing. Now I can start gluing the cabinets. I use clamping tapes. A bit of rubber hammer persuasion and everything is in place. If you are still here and like what I do, please consider leaving a subscription or a like. This will help me a lot to grow this channel. Thank you. I will make now the plywood shelves and cut them to the size of the cabinet, plus 5 mm on each side so that they fit into the groove. I glue a 2 mm strip of oak edging at the front. I mount the shelf in the body using glue, and that's it. I'm cutting an oak board to the height of my legs. I'm marking the dimensions. I wanted to use the miter jig to make the angle cuts, but unfortunately my pieces were too small for it. So I used the miter saw and cut the legs into angled pieces. An oscillating spindle sander helps me to shape them into the right dimension. It's a tool I bought some time ago, but I'm only now slowly discovering its advantages. I measure where to place the legs. On the bottom, I outline the appropriate spots and mark the central points. That's where I place the double-threaded inserts to connect the legs to the frame. Drill in hand, I proceed with the holes. I've installed the screws in the base and in the legs itself to join them into one piece using threaded rods cut into the length and screw both elements together. I don't know why, but the store didn't have the screws that are 10 with an Allen wrench. Only those that are 10 with a flat screwdriver. I don't know who invented that, but it's probably the worst design in history. It takes a lot of torque to tighten such a screw. Oak wood is very hard, and a flat screwdriver really isn't suitable for this. Okay, here's how the corpuses look now on their legs. Now it's time to start preparing the drawer fronts. First, I level the boards for gluing. Then I split them in half on the table saw. I don't know what it is about cutting and working with wood, but it almost acts as a form of meditation for me. On one hand, there is maximum focus, on the other, relaxation. The material for the fronts is ready. I put everything into clamps, glue them and wait for them to dry. Of course, no advanced gluing tools are needed here. I use a carpenter's finger. In the meantime, I'll deal with the drawers. I choose bottom mount slides because they are easier and more pleasant to use. I installed such slide once, a long time ago, so I need to seriously remind myself of the instruction on how to do it. I proceed to cut the plywood into panels. Chop, chop, and everything cuts like butter. Having all the panels ready, I can calmly proceed to assemble the drawers. I glue the elements together and use a pneumatic nailer to speed up the work a bit. I was a bit afraid of assembling these drawers, but it turned out to be a very grateful task, and I managed to assemble them into a whole quite quickly. Once the fronts have glued, I can now process them. I level the material on the planer, measure the placements of the fronts, and then, using a plunge router, cut along to the right dimension. On the miter saw, I trim them to the final width. Now it's time to mill that indentation. Once, when I made such a drawer, I prepared a template from pine wood. I spent quite some time then to nicely level all the curves, and since then it has served me as a template for making indentations. I start by tracing the shape and then roughly cutting the material with a jigsaw, cutting about 1.5–2 mm from the pencil line. I do this to route only minimal amount of material. Now on the double-sided tape I stick the template to the board and using a copying root bit, mill the hole to the exact dimension. And here's a little mishap. Remember not to use the same double-sided tape twice, because what happened to me might happen to you. The template came off and shifted. I went in with the router 2 mm too deep into the board. I managed to save it. I milled everything again 2 mm deeper. Here you can see my rotating table, where I have a planer installed on one side and a sander on the other. Depending on what I need to use, I rotate the table. Super space saver. Now the final manual sanding touch-ups and the fronts are ready. I proceed to install the slides. I install handles on the bottom of the drawer that will hold the drawer. Click and everything works. Still, a light sanding of the fronts and they can be attached to the drawers. I do this in such a way that I first drilled holes on the front of the drawer, then on double-sided tape by cut spaces I stick the front to the drawer. And then mark, drill and screw the front with screws. Final touches and I can slowly start oiling. I use rubium monocoat in cotton white. It is a mix of oil and a hardener and allows for the use of only one layer. It is very pleasant to work with. I apply a layer, wait a moment and wipe off the excess with a cloth. The finished furniture looks like this. Take care and see you in the next episode.